Okay, so here's a feature in Health One that allows us to streamline our prescribing for chronic diseases, and hypertension is a great example of this. Let's say we're going to write a drug prescription for this patient, Jay Barley. And we could prescribe her antihypertensive or initiate her antihypertensive from the Irish Specialty IPU, or from the generic, or from our private database. But you'll also see that there's a drugs by disease option, which is presently empty. In order to create a disease set for hypertension, or a drug set for hypertension, we use this icon, and we'll give the set a name, and we'll call it, in this case, first line hypertension drugs. We're going to importantly tick this item, display a selector, before prescribing the list. Now we go back to our drug list and we pick our favorite first line drugs. Let's say Cento K, and we highlight it, right click it, and send it to the first line disease set. And let's pick our most commonly used ACE inhibitor in the standard dose and send it to the same disease set. Now let's create another disease set, drug set, called hypertension. For patients whose hypertension we haven't been able to control with first line drugs. And this time we're going to leave display a selector before prescribing the list unchecked. Now we're going to again go back to the drug selector, and we're going to pick the higher dose of Coversal, send it to the second line disease set, and we'll pick let's say a high dose of calcium channel blocker and send it to the same disease set. And finally we might pick one of our favorite combination of drugs and highlight and send it to the same disease set. Now when we go to prescribe for this patient, and we prescribe drug by disease, we have the option now of prescribing first line or second line antihypertensives. If we drag first line antihypertensives into the repeat prescription box, we're given the option of the drugs that we have determined as belonging to our hypertension drug set, and perhaps we'll pick the diuretic here. And again, when you select a drug, you then have to configure it as you always would, certainly the first time you use it. Let's say at a later date that patient isn't controlled and we wish to use one of our second line drugs. Again, prescribing by disease set, we drag the icon over to the repeat prescription, but this time you see we don't get the error dialog with the checkbox. We're now getting presentation of the drug, and we either select it by saying OK or cancel it, and it then brings us to the next drug. Cancel that one, we might cancel that one, and we might then select that drug there. Now if we don't like that methodology, we can edit the disease set by highlighting it and using this icon here, and require it to display the selector if we wish. We can also edit it in order to add additional drugs to the disease set. Finally, on a related note, it's useful when you're starting a patient on a drug for a chronic disease, probably to indicate that these drugs are used for a particular indication. So if we select the two drugs we've put there and link them to a pathology, let's say hypertension, it will be very clear going forward when these drugs were first prescribed and what the pathology was prescribed for, and the drug list can be sorted on this column, which makes it easier to follow up initiation of drugs for particular chronic diseases, which is particularly useful if people have multiple drugs and multiple chronic diseases.